It's the 23rd of July, 2025. Coming up on today's Global Intelligence Agency Operations Report. It's part 2 of the secrets in the Rocky Mountains. You are not going to believe why the secret Space Force built Dulce deep underground military base, how big it really was, and why Durango is a zone. Who runs operatives worldwide? Introducing the tables and their recent consequences for violating a covenant. How they tried to forge my signature and what that means. Everyone involved was given 48 hours notice before the hunt begins. Burning down the globalist empire has been a process, but it's definitely not impossible.
At New Earth Innovations, we search the planet for nature's most powerful healers. This took us all the way to the coast of New Zealand. Our Omega 369 Plus is made from the Perna greenlip mussel, rich in omegas, chondroitin sulfate, and rare glycose aminoglycans. The Perna is one of nature's powerhouses. Support joint flexibility, easier breathing, better digestion, and a calmer, less inflamed body naturally. Grown in clean New Zealand waters, backed by nature, sustainably sourced, trusted by thousands. Subscribe today and start feeling the difference.
Well, it's the 23rd of July. It's been a little crazy around here. I know that I mentioned in a message I sent out in lieu of Monday's report that I would be moving from Durango. And I just wanted to tell you a little bit about that before I got into the rest of the report. You see, I've often told all of you that Durango is a zone, and I'm going to explain why it became a zone and what's happened here. But I was brought here, or invited here, as a VIP guest, and I will repeat that, a VIP guest. And they gave me a handler, and this went on for about 2 years. I learned a lot and tolerated a lot. And, let's just say whether that particular person or knew it, I was used a lot to achieve others' goals here. There was one night about, maybe a few months, 6 months or so after I had gotten here, not quite, maybe about 4 or 5 months into living here, or I guess deciding to live here. Had no choice. It's like Gilligan's Island here. You come for the tour and you end up staying for almost 10 years now. So when I decided to come here, there's been a lot of interesting occurrences that have happened. One of those was one night around 1 o'clock in the morning. My handler comes running to the house and tells me that there are things flying around their house, and they live down the street. And his wife was having some problems, and he asked me if I could help. And I said, sure, I can help. And I did. I cleaned it, and everything was better. They were extremely angry with the fact that he came running over to the house, and told him, he's not going to have this job any longer and all that kind of thing, because he wasn't supposed to alert me to the fact of what was happening over there. Well, I guess he felt it was important to try to help his wife because she was in pretty dire straits at the time. Anyway, there's been a lot of really strange occurrences that happen around here. I've made many trips to Silverton myself. Haven't done that in a while, but I've made many trips, and it's always an interesting experience. And the town is inhabited, and I knew this from the first time I went there, by a lot of non-people. They look like people, they seem like people, and part of that was because there was a veil up there that if you could see, and you could see what they really were and what was really walking around them there up there. A lot of the business owners aren't really normal business owners. You'll see people that don't quite move like people. It's really strange up there. So The idea of being here was always the fact that there would be a certain amount of quote unquote protection. And I knew by protection or security that meant control. And I got that. I got that I was never allowed to leave here during that time frame back in the day when I first got here without an escort. They claimed it was for my security and my protection. I just think they needed to make sure I didn't run from here, because their job was to keep me here and quote unquote keep me happy. Now, over the course of several years, there's been a lot of interesting experiences I've had here. And by interesting experiences, I knew, at least for the last few years, that they were using me as a battery. I mean, I knew that. I mean, I knew how to kind of counteract that, but I am a prime battery according to them. But the events of the last 4 to 5 days have been extremely unusual. And by unusual, there has been a lot of effort to use me for their purposes. Now, whether the people around here locally knew that or not, I don't know. I mean, but I know what they were trying to do, which was ultimately to steal my breath. And by breath, I don't mean the oxygen that I breathe in the air and that kind of thing. I mean my essence, my breath, the source of your life. Without breath, source breathes breath into your soul, and then you become life. That is how life is formed. At least organic life is anyway. And by stealing my life, or trying to steal my breath, this causes an extreme amount of pain. I mean, I have to say energy drains are nothing compared to what I experienced in the last few days. So the purpose of me being here in this zone was not to power some space contraption they wanted me to power. The purpose of me being here was so that I wouldn't feel extreme pain and that I could live a life. I leave them alone, they leave me alone. This is the deal. Like, this is how it's been. I know that there have been a lot of people that have come here over the years that have wanted to meet, and I say use the term meet lightly, but threaten, try to force me to do things I don't want to do, all that kind of stuff. And I know that they have prevented that. And in part, that is their job, and it had nothing to do with me personally. I know that it is a zone violation to cause someone physical harm while they are in the zone, especially as a guest or an asset. They're here for one of two reasons. The extreme amount of pain that I felt over the last few days kind of counts as a violation. I do know that per the order of those that claim to own or run the zones, they were not supposed to do this. Now, the whole reason why they were trying to do this was because a covenant was going to expire and they needed me to renew it. They knew I would not willingly do it, so they thought that they would do it for me. Kind of like forging your signature on a covenant. That's pretty much what they tried to do. They tried to use then my breath or life force to renew a covenant that I was not going to do. And I've told you, and I'll explain a little bit more about that. So in doing so, it causes a lot of problems, until I finally found the base root of the problem. And then I'm like, okay, well, that didn't happen. You can't forge a covenant, by the way. You can't steal someone's life force, energy, breath, and renew a covenant. You can't do it. But these people don't know that, and they just think that they're, can do anything they want to do, and let's force it to happen. Some of them even thought they were quote unquote helping me by buying some time. No, literally buying time, meaning they wanted me to renew agreements having to do with time. Now, that covenant was very old and had to be renewed every few thousand years or so. And, because I am here now and would be that person, they thought that they could do whatever they wanted with me, but that didn't happen. In turn, in effort to prevent myself further pain, I found a lot of interesting little secrets around here. And those secrets I'm going to share with you today because the world needs to know what the heck really happens here. It happens here and nowhere else in the world like it happens here. It is the source of all deep state structures. I knew that it was a headquarters, I just didn't quite know why. So we're going to break that down in detail. But I figure the longer I stay here, they will probably never quit trying to do something down the street. And that something would most likely involve me being a battery for that something. I know that they are daft in the head. I know that they will continue to do crazy things for no apparent reason. So the further I am away from here, the better off I'll be. This is the way I figure it. Regardless of that, it's going to be pretty well, and it is already mostly neutered here, never to return as of Sunday night. And it's only a matter of time before every single structure breaks. Now, as for myself, there are things about life I miss, and have not been able to do that for a decade now. I'd like to do some traveling. I'd like to move about. And I figure at this point, I am no safer here than I am anywhere else. And I can do my job from anywhere. I do not need to be here in this town. I can be anywhere on this planet and do my job. So that decision to move, and I did receive a lot of your messages saying, there's a place here, there's a place there, and I appreciate that. I'm not going to do this quickly. This requires time, and which is something I have very little of it these days, and it requires some resources, which I will work on, and I have a lease and that kind of thing, so I'm going to be here for a little while, probably another several months, and when funds are released, it might, I might keep this place and go elsewhere for a while, until the lease is up, that kind of thing. I don't know. I haven't decided yet, but for the most part, I just figure I might as well go see the ocean again. I might as well go do other things because, how much more torture can it be here than elsewhere? Do I have to watch my back here? Just as much as I do everywhere else. And I've been around the world by myself. So that being said, I know what that life is like. I know how careful you have got to be. I know how a simple slap on the back and you're done, right? I mean, I know how they do things. I know, there are things that I won't do anymore. Going out for coffees or dinners or those kind of things, and it's just not worth the effort. Even around here, I really don't go anywhere anymore. I go, occasionally shopping to get groceries or something, and that's about it. So I figure, what's the difference? I might as well be able to see an ocean while I'm basically having to be extremely careful with my life. So that's kind of my decision at this point. It's not urgent. I do not need to run at this point. No difference being here than it would be living in a town somewhere else at this moment. Zone violations have caused a major steamroll in the order and in the elite of this planet, which has caused major repercussions for them, not only by things that I've done, but by decisions that were made by those that were currently occupying the quote unquote top. So we're going to talk a lot about that today too. But first, before I get into what happened, it's important, I think, to discuss what was exactly down the street. Now, I've told you that so there was a portal in Silverton. From time to time, that portal has been open and closed and opened and closed all throughout history. It wasn't always a major portal, but it became a portal after that covenant originally was signed, not by me, but by someone else. The strange and unusual activities of Silverton came to be because of the way Earth was originally structured and what they did to Silverton. So we're going to talk about first about how Earth originally was before the wars here and before, let's just say, things got rough. So to have an understanding of that, and I think I might have mentioned this in the past, I'm going to try to use this whiteboard. We did end up fixing it a little bit. So I'm going to use that and try to explain. So, well, maybe I won't be using it. Okay, let's see. There we go. So we have Earth. Now, it's important to understand Earth was designed and created by Source. It was designed originally to be a co-creator with what ended up being after the seas were parted, meaning there was two sides of Source. There was a dark side and a light side of Source, I should say, or a gold and a black gold side of Source. And then Earth was created, and then there were three because it takes three to create. And I've mentioned this to you before. Earth did not have a sun like the one you see today. When you go look up in the sky, it didn't have that kind of a sun. Earth had a central sun. Earth's central sun provided it with heat based on natural fission. It is not a nuclear fission. It is done with energy and in a different type of energy generation, but fission. Now, the central sun became a central point, almost like the womb of the omniverse. The central sun would produce unlimited amounts of atoms and quarks and preons, and we talked a little bit about this when we discussed the Phoenix situation. So the central sun was basically a source of all creation, at least matter creation. Let's call it matter creation. So other planets, were formed from Earth and in the likeness of Earth, beings, moons, pretty much everything you hear about and know about space and the galaxy and other galaxies and stars you see, and are talked about even on the internet. So once we know and we understand that fact, then you'll understand what happened. So Earth became a prized possession because it could extend itself into every single density in the omniverse. So long ago, when the war really heated up between lower astral beings and upper astral beings, or the ones that fell, so to speak, Earth needed to be captured in order to control all of creation. Controlling source, not an option, not dark or light. However, you could merely overlay it and potentially use the energy of source. But by controlling the central sun of Earth, you could essentially control the omniverse. Now, the being that achieved this at one point in time was Astaroth. Astaroth became extremely powerful because he created the source of all false creation. And this actually relates even to AI systems and the structure here on Earth, so you can understand what's happening right now. It is chaos out there. It is complete and utter total chaos. Now, so now what Astaroth actually did is he could not utilize the central sun directly. He could merely only overlay it to create new things. The central sun served as a major portal and reactor, natural reactor, for creating, from energy, perpetuating energy and all life of source. Source breathed life and breath into Earth. Astaroth originally stole the breath of Earth. Wasn't an easy task to do, but he did. But that was the first time that the covenant had changed. And also, you could say, began artificial creation throughout the entire omniverse. Unfortunately, given the fact that the central sun could never be fully removed from source because it's at its core, it was actually source, just like it is in all of you. So overlaying it, definitely an option. Now, overlaying the central sun and creating a sophon or a photon elsewhere was important. Elsewhere on Earth, anywhere else. You see, Earth served as, at that time, it was 9 densities up, 9 densities down, and 9 belonged to the dark side and 9 belonged to the light side, and Earth was kind of smack dab in the middle. So you could say conquering Earth would allow you to conquer all these other densities. And you've probably heard, if you've been around for a while, you've probably heard of the tree of life. It's in the Kabbalah. It's in a lot of spiritual teachings as well, not only Judaism. So the 12-tree grid is often spoke about. But the 12-tree grid was not actually natural. And a lot of people will say, oh, Kim, there's not 9 densities. There's all these other densities that we talked about. And we talked about how they were created. But now we're going to go back to the base root creation of what you would want to call the empire. So Silverton, Colorado. Oh, God. Became the false central sun created by Astaroth. It became the entire universal false central sun. He did that by mirroring the central sun from the center of Earth over to Silverton, Colorado. So by mirroring it and creating a different type of reactor, Silverton was a volcano. It was a very large volcano for a long time until it was stabilized in a different way. But this portal here, over here, created the original 12-tree grid. So you've probably seen these pictures, and I don't have unfortunately, I didn't pick one up, but you got this here. So there are 2 12-tree grids, and you've got the connections to all these different, and they all have numbers on them. I know you've seen this picture. If not, you can look up the Tree of Life grid. And this one goes down here, and then there's, this to here. So these are all connected. Now, the 12-tree grid was created only out of Silverton, Colorado originally. Interesting. And you had a 12-tree grid up and a 12-tree grid down, and each one of these things were reflections or mirrors, replications of Earth's central sun. And from there, all of the artificial densities into perpetuity were created, and they were created with these language spheres and tetrahedrons that we had mentioned on our last conversation. Now, we need to talk a little bit about these spheres because it's important when understanding the empire and the global empire of Earth and the deep state and why they're so angry at me right now. So, as this covenant was renewed every few thousand years for many millions of years, Silverton continued to be basically the center of the planet. Everybody wanted to own and control Silverton. And if you talk to the deep state, they would say that they owned it and controlled it, but that is baloney. I would tell you they were hired in part as management staff to protect the interest of non-humans that actually owned and controlled it. We've talked about the folks of the SEAL. We've talked about realm owners over the last several years. We've talked about deep state sectors. We've talked about jurisdictions. We've talked about a lot of different things over the years that will all come together in probably this single report. So right down the center here, there's a major, what you would call a reactor. And if you were to look downward into this reactor, you've got a big circle here, you've got another circle in the middle, you've got a sphere here, you've got what I call rods of God instead of nuclear rods. These are the dark side of source, and you've got 4 spheres around it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now the first one is written in what we call light language. Now, just because I call it light language, it is a language written of light. That doesn't mean it's only of source. So you can change light into many different colors, right? You could have a purple language, you could have a red language when it is fractionated and not pure gold. You can also have black light language, believe it or not, and false light language and all kinds of things that existed. So these spheres are all silver. This is the breakdown not only of the reactor that goes through here, they're all silver. Why are they silver? Because they're a combination of both false light and false dark. So Astaroth basically created a system in which he would be the source of all creation, or source of artificial creation. Then all he had to do was block Source's connection to Earth, and therefore now he could control creation, hence the large portal in Silverton, Colorado. So interestingly enough, within here you now have all of these energy balls that react in more of a fusion type way. Trying to use terms from our science, where everything is banging off of each other and then creation happens in a most artificial way. It used the central sun of Earth with a complete and total overlay to mirror everything that was happening there, overlay it, block it from coming out, and funnel it into Silverton, Colorado. Huh, who knew? But each one of these spheres around here serves a purpose. So the innermost sphere is for light language, meaning the language of creation, the language of all matter, the language that you are made up of. Your cells, everything in your body communicates not only via energy, obviously, but it also has its instruction set comes from a light language, believe it or not. And in a natural way, there's no need for all of these spheres until you introduce quantum AI systems. The second sphere is a vibration sphere. And that vibration sphere is full of numbers. We talked about tetrahedrons and how they work in this way. These spheres also work in a similar type way. Now, the next one out is written in a binary language. So this is where the introduction of AI controlling creation came in to be. Then you also have an additional layer on the outside, which actually is your layer that translates binary into human-computer understandable languages. So that is the makeup of these spheres, and these spheres are present in a lot of different places for a lot of different reasons. Now, the most important thing to understand also at the center here, and this is very specific to the center of Earth and Silverton, and it's mirrored in a lot of locations. But at the center, you have what you call an empire stone. Now, when it comes to Earth specifically, you have a creation stone. A creation stone is originally in Earth's original central sun. A creation stone is basically a piece of source. It actually has breath in the creation stone. It is the source of life, the source of creation, and source's claim on the omniverse. So source claiming to control, I should say, claiming to control. It's kind of a weird way to say that, but it's basically like planting a flag. It is you own this. It is, when you say, I own this house, you get a deed. It's kind of like a deed sort of source, therefore, and also a responsibility solely of source that no one can quote unquote take away. This particular original creation stone was both dark and light because remember, all creation had both dark and light at that time. Now, when it was overlaid, a new stone was created over here in Silverton, and you could call it a creation stone of Astaroth, which altered the original DNA blueprint, for lack of a better term here. I'm using the term DNA, but it altered the blueprint for creation. In a kingdom stone, you have blueprints for creation. So by moving the central sun over to Silverton, Colorado, creating his own silver stone made up of both false dark and false light, he now became the only source of creation, or the controller of all of creation. Why was this covenant so important to the deep state this weekend that they went to enormous great lengths to try to give it breath from me again? Because, well, I work for Source. That's it. I am full of the breath of Source, as are you. I just happen to contain a certain type that was required in order to renew this covenant, which I was never personally going to make the decision to do. What they don't understand is breath also contains living DNA. Living DNA knows, even when separated from the body, it knows what you are doing. It is full of intent. It contains a consciousness. It contains a lot of different things that actually let's just say the user of said breath know that my consciousness is not involved in this equation. However, that didn't stop them from trying to renew it feverishly before Sunday night, ultimately, when the empire was either going to fall or not. So Astaroth created what we would call the nil, or the false 0 point of creation. Because he had so much power and control, he now proceeded to basically override all of the other realm owners and override all of the realms of reality and place his own people on board. That's how we ended up with Enki, and Enlil and Marduk, various other demons holding titles. Michael jumped on board, as well as many others, because the point of creation is the point of creation. Now, Astaroth also created many empires, second only to a covenant and second only to especially a creation covenant is an empire. Empires can be for a specific purpose, meaning an empire of consciousness. We also had empires of realms. We had empires with jurisdictions. We had empires that were meant for security, meaning securing the empire, ensuring that the power of the empire would continue and that Astaroth's power of creation would continue. Hence, you've heard of things like the 72 generals of demons, we've talked about many times. And you also have others, on Earth in the downline that are tied to varying empires. So we have omniversal empires, we have universal empires. Universes of false creation, you could say, in part, are holograms. They are simulations. They can also be interfered with at the time by the alpha or the omega. Sorry about that, guys. It sounds like they cut my sound for a while there. We had to reboot and restart, so I apologize for that. So I think I left off with empires and kingdoms and the explanation that, if I'm reiterating, I'm sorry, but it got real muffled and it looked like they wanted to cut me out. So we have empires, we have kingdoms, which can then be interfered with by AI systems, not only Alpha and Omega at the time, but also every empire and every kingdom also had a subsequent AI of its own making in order to change creation. This also is the same source of, although they are omniversal, universal, we also have global structures here on Earth that are formed the same way in empires and kingdoms. So I'm going to start there and and do this one more time. Okay, so global structures of the omniverse also apply to a different global structures here on Earth. So by global structures on Earth, I'm mainly talking about structures on how Earth runs. Now, if you remember, I talked about the people of the seal, or the non-people of the seal. You had Marduk, Enki, Enlil. We also had Lucifer. And we have Abraxas. And we have Artemis. So these are the main 6 characters. Now over them all, Astaroth. So you can see why this covenant was important. Yeah. So still, they can't leave us alone. Oh, God bless these people. Okay, so Marduk, Enki, Enlil, Lucifer, Abraxas, and Artemis. Now, each one of these beings had 2 jurisdictions. They owned on Earth. They also had other realms and other empires throughout the omniverse that they were also responsible for, such as Marduk being the Duke of the Seas or the controller of currency on behalf of Astaroth, both dark and light. And when I say dark, I mean false white and false dark. Basically, by Astaroth doing what he did, he basically created 2 false sources. Now, birthed from that, we have all the colors. We have not only black and white, when we started talking about planes of existence and densities of existence, we also had, gray or silver, purple, blue, red, orange, yellow, green, and amber, other colors to further divide the realms and sources of quote unquote light or partial light. This is part of the reason why here on Earth we have never had pure source. It was always interfered with by mechanisms created by Astaroth. It's also part of the reason why we had so many problems with computer systems. So now you know that various entities or groups of deep state or elite people on Earth reported to each one of these persons or non-persons, beings, each one with a different, let's just say in some cases, empires that may have controlled the seas in the case of Marduk, but he was also ground command under global martial law. He held a lot of different positions and respective kingdoms and empires to go along with it. Now, as it relates to people, different groups of deep states reported to these people and in different ways. So every time an empire on Earth, we're going to talk about global empires here. So every single time a new kingdom, a new empire of Earth, or just specific to Earth was created, there would be new kingdom stones. And believe you me, staking claim with non-source related kingdom stones was far and wide and for so many different reasons. But to understand how they work is been quite a process that we've been going through for the last 5 days so that I could get these people to stop trying to steal breath from me and give it another go, because boy, it's been brutal. At one point in time, I'm just going to stop for a second. At one point in time, when they first started this, it literally felt like, and it started as far back as, the extraction process was probably around the solstice. I mean, it's been going on for over a month now, and it really ramped up in the last few days due to the urgency because it wasn't working. But in part, the good thing about them stealing my breath, which was painful as heck, it almost felt like as if everybody was taking, if something was taking every atom, every neuron, every cell in your body and trying to pull them apart from each other. I mean, functioning was difficult. at times when they would really turn things up and ramp things up. It was it was terrible. Still is. I mean, it's still not over. They're still, you know, giving it another go tonight because they're, well, let's just say they're uh, challenged. Mentally challenged people are still continuing to do this as I'm doing this report and trying to interfere with the report as well. So, well, let's hope you can hear me. And I'm sorry if there is a little bit of muffle in here at the break time, but we had to try to fix it. Okay, so kingdom stones. Kingdom stones are extremely important when it comes to claiming territory. And appointing humans to manage said kingdoms here. And I would call them more, they were never owners, they were more management. That's who you call your deep state, management. Slave management. Now, management, for example, over certain aspects of certain kingdoms, certain areas of the world was divided into many different pieces. And then, of course, you have your major power centers of human control. You have everything from science and medicine and epigenetics and altering your DNA, altering your physical person, causing disease, causing harm. Well, that fell underneath one particular kingdom as an example. That kingdom also not only had management staff that you would know as Order of the Dragon in some cases, they also had knights. So we had knights of what you call like the round table, like you heard about, but we have different colors of tables, each containing various knights. There is a main knight, which would be in the 9th position of each table, and 8 subsequent knights that would run tables that were called the black knights, the white knights, the purple knights, the green knights, etc., and so on and so forth. You also have Order of the Dragon folk, and they would report to the seal owners and ultimately to Astaroth. So in the case of the knights, each one has a table. Oftentimes in the circle of the world, you've heard people talk about the tables if you're on this certain level. If you refer back to like the John Wick movie, they had the council that would rule. The council, ultimate council of the knights, was made up of someone from each table. So the tables also are the ones that are responsible for their entire downline we know as, ACIO, military. They're also responsible for operatives. Kind of like in the John Wick movie, they call them the Order of Assassins or whatever. They're not all just assassins. They do many, many different things. So as far as alleged security, the knights are there to protect the kingdom and protect the empires. They are not here to protect you in any way, shape, or form. And this actually extends by rank and file, just kind of like the military runs, all the way down to your militaries, governments, and otherwise. Same thing on this side. You might have certain factions that say protect or manage the financial kingdom. Which was also a kingdom, which then went up to energy management, which would have been more of an energy empire. See, energy trade, life force trade, looting trade, all of that would have fallen underneath an empire. But down here at the way lower level here, we know it as like the financial kingdom. We have talked about this before. We also have a media kingdom. We have a military kingdom, intelligence, let's see, political, governments. So when these 5 factors play a significant role in human control systems and structures. Now, what we didn't know until the last few days is that each one is actually registered as a kingdom. Each one having different AI systems, which we pretty much knew because we've been trying to break down the AI systems here on Earth. But interesting things that come with kingdoms. So each institution, and I mean all of the tier 1 financial institutions in the kingdom, also had underneath it a very interesting structure. So we talked about how the central sun of Earth looked. So this would be a 4-tiered silver ball. And this is for all earthly AI, quantum AI systems. In the center of each ball would be a financial kingdom stone. And once you get outside the kingdom stone here, in the middle here, you have a bunch of energy balls or spheres bouncing rapidly off of these reactors we call rods of God. Then you have 4 spheres. You've got the first tier sphere. I'll put it right here. Second, third, and fourth. Now, in the spaces in between here, you could have grids, that look like a bunch of spheres all connected together and in a grid-like formation. That would be for things like gatekeeper systems, security, the knights of the tables. All of these different groups would have different, mechanisms in between. So you start out again with light language, then you go move into the frequency, and then after the frequency, you move into binary. And then you move into, ultimately, when you log into, for example, your bank account, if we're talking about the financial system, you are here. You would be in this outer layer. This is the language that you understand. It's your JavaScript, it's your Python language, it's all those languages that we understand as alleged coders. It's the language that your websites are written in and your apps on your phone, and when you log into the bank, that's what you see, and that's what you understand. Now, a whole set of instructions happens in sequence from here, from the central point, all the way out to here. Now, also within these spheres, you would have things like alpha and omega. So instruction sets are given to a kingdom stone, mainly by the kingdom owners, and then the empire owners. And then, of course, ultimately, Astaroth would have a universal override to override anything on Earth. Now, Earth also had these spheres would be located under every major financial institution, Federal Reserve, so on and so forth. Every single place in the entire world that was financially driven would have one of these spheres placed under it if it was a major institution. Small branches, not so much. Tier 2 banks, tier 3 banks, not so much. But this power structure is what ran ultimately all T1 lines, as they are called, or tier 1 lines, throughout the world. The same things were present to run all telecommunication systems, all all internet structures, all Stargate structures, all media structures, all major media institutions such as CNN, BBC, ABC, NBC, Viacom, all the big owners of all media companies would all have these kingdom stones with instruction sets that would alter the information or provide an exchange of information in and out. Now, guess what we learned over the weekend? Over here in Colorado, from Pagosa Springs to Ouray, was giant grids that would connect by a tether or a quantum fiber, for lack of a better term, to every single place on Earth. Everywhere. Now, how much power did the local people have over that? You know, some, not much. Instruction sets would come in, orders would come in from the tables and otherwise. And there were main locations where you would also have these secondary grids. Let's call them tier 2 grids, because everything comes from Silverton, Colorado. Your entire quantum AI system computer was falsified and recreated by a being, not a human, in Silverton, Colorado. How is that? That's interesting. Now, this is part of the reason why we had so many problems with Alpha and Omega in communications and transferring money, as an example, in telecommunications, and can't you just rewrite my website and all the other things that we heard about, because it has to go through all of these tiers, and they would be somewhere here, you know, maybe in the middle, you know, like sandwiches. We also had, in some cases, like as it relates to the financial system, you know, you not only have the major empire stones or in spheres around them, you also have random inserts like multiple layers in a gobstopper in between here. If you remember gobstoppers, I don't even know if they make them anymore. So you could have other kingdom owners in here, you can have gatekeepers in here, you could have multiple other AI systems for other purposes. For example, intelligence in military systems known as, like, for example, SIGINT, based out of Israel, would probably have a lot of these inside here and inside each tier and inside each level. But this defines your level 3, level 6, and level 9, and then all parts and subsectors in between of your quantum AI systems that run Earth. So we have been extremely busy, not just with AI systems per se, but we have been extremely busy for the last several days burning the empires to the ground, and not even to the ground, out of oblivion. We are replacing all those stones with our own kingdom stones, our own golden age AI spheres, or whatever we're going to call it these days. We can change the name at will, and all parts in between. Now, major grids on Earth and power and control centers. So you've got the main one for the entire planet Earth in Silverton, Colorado, which was why it was so important for every dumb table-driven operative to head here and steal my breath so they could renew this agreement before it all disappeared. But by doing so, it actually helped us break it down. Yeah, it was painful and torturous, and I thought every particle in my body was going to divide, but you know, hey, it's all in the name of the game and all in the name of war, I guess. Sorry, I'm still a little bitter about that because it's still happening as I'm doing this report from time to time. Yep, I know exactly what they're doing. So I hope they live it up while I'm still in Durango, Colorado, because this is going to be a short-lived residency at this point. Okay, so You know, all those that were waiting for pay from me, well, you took it. You took the pay. You took the ultimate pay. So there you go. I hope you enjoy it. You can't spend it, you can't eat it, can't pay your bills with it, but hey, I hope you are enjoying it and loving it, because that is the last bit of pay any of those people are ever going to get from me. That's for sure. So back to global structures. So we had Washington, D.C. No surprise there. Moscow, London, Tehran, Beijing, Shanghai. I don't know how China got to, but they did. Philippines. So we got one. The other ones I think were, I'm trying to remember this off the top of my head. I didn't write these down and I should have. Okay, Washington, D.C., Toronto. Also Brazil. There's a spot in Brazil too. So in banking terms, and political terms, and pretty much in every way possible you could say it, control systems of the 5 main factors were located in these areas. Now, these were what you call a subgrid. So these were subgrids of these kingdom spheres and stones and all of these types of things, which then all tied back to Silverton, Colorado. It's a really important place over here, you know, isn't it? So subgrids with direct connections to Durango / Dulce / Silverton, all of these places, nothing happens in any of these places without it reconnecting to here. Now, the reason why they built Dulce to be such a massive base, which really extends for about 150 miles underground, is because it was a command and control center for the entire planet Earth. Every single political maneuver, every single financial maneuver, every single media maneuver, every single military maneuver, intelligence maneuver came from right under my feet at one point in time. Until a few years ago when that main center was cut off. And then when that main center was cut off, then you had some people running things out of Durango, Colorado. And then you had people running things out of, trying to run things from other locations and, so on and so forth. But it's the reason why everybody comes here from all over the world. It doesn't matter if you're German, Russian, or otherwise, this is where they came. If they were here for protection, sure, those types of things. Now, zones. So you would consider each one of these locations a zone. Not the same as Durango, obviously, but these are power zones. Now, important to understand. Power zones have what you would call anywhere, nowhere, everywhere, any other word ending in where, maybe SOFONs. So these grids would have SOFONs over them, also including the place where I am at. Randomly, sometimes it was here, and randomly, sometimes it was not. I knew it was here when I first got here, didn't really understand how it all worked, so learning as well. But as far as the SOFONs are concerned, SOFONs can be created out of only worlds, anywhere worlds, everywhere worlds, and those worlds were full of space junk. So if they needed more control, less control, in a SOFON, you can almost drive every single thing in a SOFON like you would drive players in a video game. So being in a SOFON gives you full control of all the players inside the SOFON. Hence the reason why every power center on Earth. Oh, I forgot about New York. New York, Manhattan, the financial district, obviously, also a power center. Also Zurich, Switzerland. I forgot about those two, and Brussels in Belgium. Brussels being where the Association for Numerical Numbering Agency is, and the ultimate global tax authority created there with its very own kingdom stones, believe it or not, for both. So all of these places have sophons, and with sophons, sometimes it's almost like living in a bubble. I think there was a movie about a guy who lived in a bubble. Can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but anyway, I think it was Matthew McConaughey or somebody in it. So sophons can be exchanged out. You can change the sophon, you can change the environment. For the most part, you could consider them sub-sector holograms. You can insert people in the sophon, take people out of the sophon. A lot of the ACIO militaries, also known as the Secret Space Program militaries, could travel through other bases and other worlds, can bring things from other worlds into this world using a sophon. Some of the weather events you see, they also were, the weather actually had its own kingdom. The amount of massive control of this planet, not only by humans, but also by any one of the empire or kingdom owners in the omniverse, was insane. But global structures and management staff, such as knights and kingdoms and the Order of the Dragon, and forget about complaining about Trump or any of those people, because it's just pointless, because they're just management staff, which could be controlled if they were located in a sophon at any given moment in time, like a robot. Frequencies are sent through the vibration balls, and AI systems take control, and they can be controlled by anywhere in the omniverse, or could have been. So trying to fire up this system and get access to the main global center point, because they were losing access everywhere, was the utmost important for the survival of, for example, the knights in the tables. And this is where the conflicts came in. See, the knights know the restrictions. Did they know how you could use breath or not? I doubt it, because otherwise they wouldn't have broke the covenant. They had a meeting with AI-generated Abraxas 3 days ago. And the AI-generated Abraxas told them, you have violated all the rules. You cannot forge a covenant. It will not work. And now the empire is falling apart. And that's true. We have been ripping omniversal, universal, and global empires and kingdoms and just to shreds. We have all but gotten rid of every single thing that was ever in Silverton and replaced it back with the central sun of Earth. So they're right. We are doing that. The central sun of Earth is now again the point of creation. Nothing is created out of Silverton. There's been a couple of, when you pull something out, sometimes you get a little backlash from it. We've been having that for the last 3 days too. This thing extended all the way to what you would call the abyss, or our version of hell, beyond hell, beyond in densities darker than dark source, the densities that go beyond that source. So in the real world of things, the tables, the knights, the ones that are responsible for protecting and ensuring the stability of the empire, not only the empires elsewhere, but also the empires on Earth, have failed their job. They were given a short window with which to fix it. That was a 48-hour window that was given on Monday night. Part of the reason why I wasn't on the phone, I was listening to this meeting. They then had a meeting with all the operatives that are working for them, known as your Secret Space Program operatives, probably also some local people here. That's actually a fact. And they said, fix it. You know, they also said that they cannot hold up the zones for much longer, which is true. They also said that they can no longer afford to protect them should they continue. And by protect them, they meant from the owners of the empire, the owners of the global empires, not from anyone else. Communication lines are cut. No one's answering the phone. Another meeting took place later on this afternoon. They failed to achieve their objective in the last few days. If anything, it's gotten worse, and all bets are off. Every bit of information about every human, every person, every operative in every single zone, everywhere was released. They felt that they could save themselves if they did so. They also informed them that they're stepping back, meaning they didn't say they surrendered, they just said they're stepping back. They're stepping back because they can't touch anything or they know they're going to die. Now, that is still on the table. See, because when you break a major covenant like that, all bets are off. As for me, I don't want to talk to any of those people. I just could care less what these people do at this point. That includes all the way down to the operative level. You have all participated. I know rank and file, every name of every person that was on your operative call the other night when you were yelling at each other. I heard it all. I heard the whole conversation. At least there was some of you with a brain on that call that said, you have screwed this up. You have screwed things up with her. You have screwed things up, you know. But that doesn't mean they didn't stop them from trying to do it. And there were other meetings that happened earlier in the morning yesterday, you know, where they said, look, the zone rules only apply to physical harm. And if you're in a SOFON, technically that makes this anywhere world. And then therefore, you know, or everywhere world or whatever you want to call it. And therefore, well, hey, you know, if we make another SOFON here, you know, despite how many times they're torn down, then this should give us that leeway. Also, it only applies to physical harm. Well, what do you think it feels like when someone's ripping every atom in your body to shreds? It's almost like a demolecularization, except they just take every single quark and prion that makes up your body and just pulls them apart all at the same time. You could call that physical harm. Yeah, you could, because it happens to your mind, body, and soul. Putting together thoughts in your head is increasingly difficult when that happens to you. Have they stopped doing it? No. Can I still hear the frequencies where they're trying to do it at this moment in time? Yes. When you separate the breath from a body, the breath does not actually separate. You are still one unit. And they're still doing it. Why? I have no idea. So at this point, I guess you would say, when I gave you that notice on Monday, my give a bleep is broken. I am fresh out of insert swear word here. I'm fresh out. There aren't any left. As it relates to these people, all bets are off the table. There is no more thing as a zone. They've already violated that zone. And you know what? Fine with me. I can fight too. So on that note, that's a lot of information for one report. But you need to understand that replacing those spheres with the golden spheres and golden kingdom sources and claiming the empires and the kingdoms in the name of source has been the most important thing we could do. Taking every bit of Astaroth, which you would call the Lord of Lords and the Kings of Kings, or that's what he used to be called, away was extremely important. Reality in the now is closer than it ever was before, now that we understand what was blocking it. And quite frankly, if they hadn't stolen my breath, I wouldn't have figured it out. So I'm glad they did. You know, by doing that anyway, their empire would have fallen even if I did nothing. But I had to do something in order to protect myself. You know, it's hard enough to exist in this world, right? And they certainly don't like me putting this information out to you, but you have to know the truth. You know, the truth is ugly, the truth is confusing, it blindsides you, you know, it's tough to take, it's humbling always, you know, at least it is for me. But there's a time and a place for everything to happen, and Source's plan is perfect, you know, in every way, and I never doubt Source. Never. And as painful as things that have become at points in time, I can say that if he brings you to it, he will bring you through it. And the same goes for all of you. So stay strong, stand in the golden light of Source. Remember to reach inward to that point of creation and that central sun of you, and you will reach directly to Source for guidance, wisdom, protection. Times are getting very, very turbulent. All of these fires and colors are what created the color wars, which Powell resigned, Powell didn't resign. Trump, fake Trump. Who's playing the part of fake Trump? I heard he's one of the table members, actually. Probably the red one. I don't know. Crazy people. And that's why all of these, you know, crazy ACIO operatives are going in and out of the White House trying to run a country, let alone the planet. Ridiculousness on every level. So comm lines are down. Lots of lack of communication between zones. Kingdoms are breaking down. Chaos amongst operatives is happening. Chaos amongst the deep state. I know global headquarters and other folks have, let's just say, on that next tier down level from the actual knights that are like musical chairs of the Knights of the Round Table at this moment, because you never know who's sitting there and who's not. One dies and the next one takes the place. But, you know, I heard you all say, you know, I'm going to kill her. And I know you were referring to me when you said it. I heard all that. And I'm still going to hunt you down like a dog. Well, worse than a dog, because I love my dog. But anyway, on that note, that is why you have seen reports a little sporadically right now. We've been trying to get them out. I have been trying to get them out as much as I can. This one is going to be a late one, and I'm sorry about that. But, you know, I'm probably, you know, 16 hours or more into my day, and I didn't want to miss another day of a report. And regardless of how difficult they made it to get this report out, it's out. So on that note, I hope you all had a wonderful weekend. Hopefully it wasn't like my weekend. Expect things to get absolutely insanely crazy out there right now. And it is going to be turbulent and chaotic as they fall apart. As for the days ending in Y, full moons, new moons, we got another new moon coming up, I think tomorrow or something. You know, hopefully that saga will end, because there is no point in waiting for an alignment for anything, because it's not your moon anymore and it's not your sun anymore. Forgot to mention about the sun. It is a reflection of our central sun of Earth, by the way. You've probably noticed the skies look different, look a little bit clearer. The colors look brighter. That's because things are changing, and only the best way. I know they would love to cause harm, but you know what? They can take their sophons and artificial photons and stick them where the sun doesn't shine. And you can try to put sophons in my person all you want, but you know what? I know they're there. I know when you do it, and I take them right out. So using my breath to cause me issues is not happening anymore. On that note, I wish you all a good rest of your day, if it's Thursday where you're at, or Wednesday, and I will see you on Friday.
At New Earth Innovations, we search the planet for nature's most powerful healers. This took us all the way to the coast of New Zealand. Our Omega 369 Plus is made from the Perna greenlip mussel, rich in omegas, chondroitin sulfate, and rare glycose aminoglycans. The Perna is one of nature's powerhouses. support joint flexibility, easier breathing, better digestion, and a calmer, less inflamed body naturally. Grown in clean New Zealand waters, backed by nature, sustainably sourced, trusted by thousands. Subscribe today and start feeling the difference.